On October 29, 2012, the worst hurricane in the past 5 years slammed into one of the most densely populated regions of the United States. The impact point was within 10 miles of original weather satellite predictions made almost 8 days before. The early warning issued by these guardians of the skies allowed for swift evacuation, saved countless lives, and helped divert more catastrophic disaster. This is a testament to the seemingly endless capabilities and boundless potential of satellite technology. It is hard to imagine a world where no weary satellites encircle the planet, picking out threats and analyzing Earth's weather patterns. It is even harder to imagine a world where sharing our ideas and feelings is more difficult than a quick call, text, tweet, or Facebook update, and such communication is not constantly available. But not so long ago, the skies were dark. Knowledge was contained only in books and in minds, and sharing that knowledge required close contact or the use of limited earthly telephone systems. 50 years ago, satellite technology was still in its infancy. The launch of Sputnik 1 in 1957 by the Soviet Union sent America reeling in the face of the first real threat to its global security since its rise to power in the years since World War II. The space race had begun, as both the Soviet Union and the United States battled in a game of one-upmanship to see who truly had the greater technological superiority. In 1962, the Soviets seemed to be winning this race, as they had beaten their rivals in the launch of the first successful satellite and the first manned spaceflight. However, on July 10th of 1962, the tables were turned when America launched what was to become the most relevant piece of space-age technology to modern everyday life, the TELSTAR. The TELSTAR was a spherical satellite measuring 34.5 inches in length, weighing about 170 pounds, and powered by the sun. It was privately created by Bell Laboratories of AT&T, and then launched in partnership with NASA. The TELSTAR was the first active, direct relay communication satellite, and the first satellite to transmit live television pictures, telephone calls, and transatlantic television feed. The TELSTAR is seldom given the full credit it deserves. When most people remember the space race, they think of Sputnik or the Apollo moon landings. But while these accomplishments are tremendous, they didn't have a tangible effect beyond the political implications and incremental scientific advancements, and nowadays they have little applicable meaning to everyday life. The TELSTAR, however, ushered in a dazzling new era of communication. It paved the way for generations of satellite technology that has enabled us to surround ourselves in a net of information and connectivity. Although the TELSTAR did not start or define the space race, it was the integral turning point that shifted America and the world into the information age, and it represented America's first real victory over the Soviet Union in the space race. It relayed the first live and transatlantic broadcast in the history of mankind. Messages of peace and optimism for the future overlapped with images of the TELSTAR and the American flag.
Now comes the historic moment, a moment compared in significance with the first message sent over the telegraph. This is the first picture transmitted to outer space and received back again on Earth. Scenes of the dome at Andover are flashed across the sea, and man marks another milestone in this age of scientific miracles. So proudly it waves.
President Kennedy talked with enthusiasm about the lasting effects of the TELSTAR and his hope that it would bring peace and better understanding between all people.
I understand that part of today's press conference is being relayed by the TELSTAR communications satellite to viewers across the Atlantic, and this is another indication of the extraordinary world in which we live. This satellite must be high enough to carry messages from both sides of the world, which is, of course, a very essential requirement for peace, and I think this understanding, which will inevitably come from the speedier communications, is bound to increase the well-being and security of all people.
After almost 8 months in action, the TELSTAR finally went out of service on February 21, 1963, due to electrical failures caused by radiation interference from a United States high-altitude nuclear test called Starfish Prime. Despite the fact that it has been inactive for over 50 years, the legacy of the TELSTAR 1 lives on. The reason that its creation was such a critical turning point is that it gave rise to true interglobal communication and forever changed the world we live in. It produced one of the few lasting effects of the space race because its impact on human history is still relevant today. Here I had an interview with Mr. Sparber, founder of the History Detectives of Allegheny County, about his view of the significance of the TELSTAR seen through his eyes as a teenager at the time.
You know, I think the technology made certainly the world smaller. The instantaneousness of information is what really changed. It's almost like a telephone call. You were talking to someone at the same time. But with TELSTAR, this is the first time that we're getting live film of what was going on. We also knew that it was the immediacy of that. And I think that's the turning point there, which certainly now we just take for granted. There's so many different ways of having that immediate information.
As indicated by the interview with Mr. Sparber, satellites are an essential cog in the machine of modern society. The internet, news systems, weather networks, telephone, television, radio, law enforcement, GPS, space research, and the global market all at least partially depend on communication satellites and satellites in general. Today, communication satellites carry a third of all telephone and virtually all television traffic between countries. Email has become a daily routine for 80% of American households. Communication satellites can easily establish a link to places where ground structure is either unavailable or has been destroyed, making them essential to disaster relief efforts. Spy and weather satellites continually provide crucial information about potential threats and dangers, whether from man or nature. Ever since the TELSTAR created the path for commercial satellites, they have become the linchpin of global communications and an important part of national security. This satellite dependence is not always a good thing. The incident of Starfish Prime proved that a high-altitude nuclear blast or electromagnetic pulse could easily shut off satellite communications and even harm Earth-based electrical systems, sending the world into the dark. Some people cannot help but wonder if the world would not be a better place without satellites and the constant information exchange they bring. They argue that satellites aren't worth all the problems they cause. 3,000 satellites currently clutter the skies. Only about 1,000 of them are active. Since the beginning of the space age, over 10,000 man-made objects have been tracked in orbit. These objects regularly fall out of orbit and come crashing to the Earth's surface, and the more that exist, the higher the chances of a space collision. Then there's the potential military threat of satellites. So far, satellites are only used for reconnaissance and spying purposes, but only the Outer Space Treaty of 1967 has kept nuclear weapons from being stored or fired from outer space. Next, there's the massive security threat that the internet possesses. Millions of people keep their entire lives and finances on the internet. Governments use it to run security systems, electrical grids, finances, and information exchanges. Even if they are heavily encrypted and protected, these essential accounts and data structures are surprisingly easily hacked by groups of experienced individuals. If all the various security and safety concerns created by the existence of satellites are ignored, we still must consider the frequently negative effects that they have on us as a people and as a society. The internet can be used as a tool to spread radical propaganda and senseless hate at lightning speeds. In America, satellites allow us to talk with anyone at any time, but rather than increase the flow of ideas and goodwill, as President Kennedy had hoped, this constant exposure seems to have numbed us to human contact. When was the last time that you had a face-to-face conversation with a colleague, rather than just sending an email to his cubicle just 10 feet away? Instant entertainment has contributed to the entitlement mentality and the television society. Easy connectivity via social media permits immediate expression of opinion, which has led to a self-obsessed and lazy culture, with eyes glued to a screen. Like any other technology, the TELSTAR brought with it both astounding advancements and great obstacle, but there is no denying that it has truly changed the world we live in forever. The potential for humanity that communication satellites hold is both an awesome and sobering force, and if we are wise, we can use the power of human communication through this technology to shape a better tomorrow.